very positive thing.
Thank you. Lilith, American University.
Yes, Your Majesty. As you are involved in so many state affairs and you are involved in so many issues such as YouTube that you are creating, and you have a real deep commitment to your family, how does that balance, how is that created in your life?
Well, you know, that is something I think about quite a lot and I struggle with very, very often. First of all, the issues that I deal with are pretty much focused on education, child protection and welfare, community development, and the East-West dialogue. But that is quite a lot on my plate. And often I do think whether I am spending enough time with my children or whether somehow my children are paying the price for my commitments. But then I realize it doesn't have to be a struggle. It's important for each one of us to have a clear life plan in which you set your priorities and you determine what it is that is important to you. And in my life plan, my children still remain my #1 priority, and I act upon that. They know it. They know that they are the most important thing in my life, and that helps them accept my commitments when I have to be away. And I know it, which means that when I plan my life, I make sure that, for example, on trips, I'm not gone for very long, that when I come back, I spend a considerable amount of my time with them and really sort of connecting with them and communicating with them. So, but I tell you, you know, that balance doesn't exist. It's a constant juggling act, and sometimes you feel that you have everything under control, and sometimes you feel, you know, it's not working. But you get through the day, and as long as my children are confident and happy and secure in themselves, then I feel that I've done a pretty decent job.
Emmanuel de l'École Centrale.
Your Majesty, as the first UNICEF eminent advocate for children, how do you consider your role? Is being a spokesperson the more important? Or are you involved in educational and health projects for the organization?
Well, I believe my involvement in UNICEF is two parts. It's advocacy and action. You know, UNICEF is a terrific organization trying to do a very tough job. You know, trying to provide for children who have been neglected, providing health care, ensuring education, safety, etc. It's a very, very difficult job that they're doing. And so it's very important for me to try to spotlight their work as much as possible, to let people know what the issues are on the ground, to write about it, talk about it. And because for us to change, to bring about change, we need to bring about awareness. But I need to have the awareness too, which means that I need to be on the ground as well, visiting some of the projects, seeing what they do. So for example, I went to India to look at some of their community education projects. I went to Pakistan in the aftermath of the earthquake. I went to Morocco to see their efforts there to reduce child labor. And all those things allow me to feel on the ground the work that's being done and to really understand the importance of it. And to look at some of the issues, you know, like for example, girls' education. That is an extremely effective way among all the development goals that we have. One of the ones that pays off most is girls' education. Because when a girl is educated, she acquires the sense of self-confidence and self-worth. She's able to hold a productive job, which means that she will probably not get married very young. She will not have, she's less likely to get HIV/AIDS. She's less likely to have a child when she is a young person herself. She's more able to take care of herself and her children and their health and their education. So it's an investment that pays off over many generations. And I'm just feeling very, very honored that I can make a difference in that regard by working with UNICEF.
Amélie, HEC.
Your Majesty, what are the main problems you face today in your commitment to improve the livelihood of the children around the world?
Well, one of the main challenges is, you know, with so many issues competing for global attention, one of the main challenges, you know, you have so many issues such as HIV/AIDS, climate change, war, conflict, etc. One of my challenges is to make sure that children's affairs remain on the priority list of leaders. Because, the issue is urgent. You have 10 million children dying every year, many of them from preventable diseases. You have 72 million children who are not attending school. Therefore, we do have a development crisis, yet the world's reaction has been too slow. And that's perhaps because it doesn't look like a traditional disaster. You don't have earth shaking under your feet or a tidal wave or drought. But just because we can't send an ambulance to the scene, it doesn't make the problem less urgent. It is an emergency, it is a crisis, it is unfolding, and it needs our attention right now. So I think keeping the spotlight and the sense of urgency on children's issues is a very, very important aspect of what I do, and it is sometimes a challenge to make sure that people are focused on that.
Pierre de l'Essec.
Your Majesty, given the information we receive from our media and our Western point of view, we have the impression that the status of women is worsening in many areas of Middle East and Near East. You already answered on the situation of women. So, is this a mere reflection of misunderstanding of the situation?
Well, first of all, one of the main mistakes that people make is that they look at the Arab world as one monolithic whole, that we're all the same, and that women in the Arab world all have the same problems or are at the same place. When in fact the Arab world is made up of many countries, and in each one of these countries, women have made some successes, some have some setbacks, face different challenges. Yes, we have a lot in common, but there's also different levels of progress made in different Arab countries. Now, having said that, are there challenges that Arab women face? Sure, there are many challenges. Not least of all is challenging some of the cultural mindsets that exist that limit women from reaching their potential. We have laws that need to be changed to become more gender friendly. We have to encourage women to participate more in political life. We have to make sure that women, after they get educated, that they enter the labor force. But is the situation getting worse in the Arab world? No, I think it is getting much better. I see progress all the time taking place. In fact, there was a survey that was done recently among companies and corporations, and 75% of them said that they have women in senior positions, which means that the labor landscape in the Arab world is changing, with more women entering the labor force than ever before and entering into senior positions. And when we look at, for example, education, we have achieved quite a lot in terms of educational achievement and attainment. We have more, for example, female university attendees than we have male. So in terms of education, we're doing also very well. But if you ask me, is the average woman in Jordan as empowered as the average woman in France? No, she's not. But that does not mean that she is disempowered. She still has considerable amount of say and role in society. And in Jordan, in many countries in the Arab world, women are involved in politics. We do have women parliamentarians, ministers, judges, women in the army. We have women ambassadors, our ambassadors to France. I consider to be, she's a female, and I consider her to be one of the shining stars in our diplomatic corps. She has done a fantastic job. So, women are occupying very important position. That's not to say that we don't have our challenges ahead. We still do, but we are making progress. And these women are women who are very quietly and proudly and very courageously breaking old stereotypes. And by doing that, they're breaking a path for the next generation and making it easier for the next generation of women to also follow their footsteps. So I think we need to applaud them, and instead of just always focusing on the negatives and how women are oppressed in the Arab world, we should also look at some of the success stories in order to create the image that is more realistic.
A follow-up question on the same issue from Laure, from the ESSEC.
Your Majesty, In your fight against honor crimes, you criticize a practice that is still very strong in the mindset of the society, since tradition has been preserved by the royal family. Sorry, how do you stay critical without putting yourself in an adversarial position with Parliament?
In the face of such injustice, it's difficult not to remain critical. Let me just begin by saying that as a woman, as an Arab, and as a Muslim, I think that this is a heinous crime. It is unacceptable in any way, shape, or form, and it is not accepted in Islam. It is not condoned by Islam. Islam does not encourage you or suggest that you should take the law in your own hands. And that is something that we need to educate not only other societies about, but we need to educate our own society that you cannot, that Islam does not allow you to do this. And that is, we are working on that. And just to explain, what honor crimes is about. First of all, it is not a widespread practice in Jordan. We have official statistics put the number of crimes at about 20 crimes per year. And even though that's not a high number, for me, one crime is too much. And so, there's no excuse. The concept of the honor is built on the fact that in the Arab world, the people identify according to their extended family, not just to their nuclear family. So you belong to a larger unit, if you will. And there's a high value placed on the moral conduct and the honor and all of that kind of thing in that family. So if one person is perceived to have deviated from that, then the whole family feels that they have been dishonored, and therefore the reaction is very, very exaggerated and so violent. Having said that, there is absolutely no justification for such crimes to exist. We are trying to challenge it head on through grassroots movements where civil society is engaged, community leaders as well as religious leaders are involved in this. In addition to that, our medical and law enforcement and judicial parties are also extremely vigilant about this and taking it more seriously. And media has a very important role to play in bringing about more awareness. But the thing is, cultural practices take sometimes a long to change, but we are absolutely determined to ensure that this practice is eradicated once and for all, and people who commit those acts should get the maximum level of punishment by the law.
Benjamin, Sciences Po.
Your Majesty, as your family is native from Palestine, and as Jordan was the second Arab country to sign a peace treaty with Israel, you are able to understand the different points of view. What is your opinion regarding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
Well, as you know, this conflict has been allowed to go on for over 50 years now, and over that time, we've seen nothing but, fleeting hopes, repeated disappointment, and deepening despair. And in that context, I think it's very easy for people to become very cynical and to just give up hope and say, there's never going to be peace between the Israelis and Palestinians. And it's easy for us to do that. But if we do that, then what we're doing is writing off on the future of millions of people and children. And we're allowing a cancerous aspect to linger on in our world and to continue to fester and to bring about violence. Because, we must never ever think that the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is limited to the borders and the boundaries of that small region. It has repercussions that affect our entire world in many different ways, whether in the ideologies of some people, whether it's in violent behavior, even terrorism. And in the face of injustice, such injustice, we should never give up, ever give up on humanity. What we need is courage, we need vision, we need commitment, we need more diplomacy, more engagement by the international community. That's what we need to focus on. But I must say that what's worrying me most at this stage is the humanitarian crisis that exists in the territories. I feel that the humanitarian situation is pushed to the brink at this stage, far worse than it ever was previously.